Greetings, everyone. My name's Dale Parrish. I'm the host that's one of the things that we want to start telling everybody about today. And of course, my co-host is Ken Kashuba. But Ken, we need to be telling everybody that we're changing the name of COS Indiana Live, and we're changing it to Convention of States Today, or COS Today. So I want to just make sure we need to be mentioning that off and on so that everyone understands that we're getting away from the name COS Indiana Live. So hello, Ken. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Dale.
Good, good.
Appreciate you letting people know that we're in the midst of making some changes for the new year, but we're going to start bringing it in so people get used to hearing it.
Yep. We're going to be we're in order. We this is a transition to this new name, and a lot of things we have to address and take care of uh, uh, as part of this transition. So just getting people used to do our name is probably the top one on the list. Well, listen, Ken, I want to, by the way, Ken will be monitoring any viewer comments or questions that come in tonight. And so if you're viewing on Facebook or our YouTube channel, feel free, and you want to make a comment or ask a question, go ahead and do that through the chat. Ken will be taking a look at those and bring any of those to our attention that needs to be, so that we can give it some time and address that. So, Ken, I want to make an announcement before we go any further here. I thought about how I was going to say this, and I never did come up with a scripted way of saying this, but folks, if you remember last month about this time, it was early in the month, we announced our view count for October. And we were very proud of that count. We track our view count every month, and of course we track the number of followers that we have. And we're very proud of that. I'll tell you, this year has just been a banner year for us when it comes to viewers and followers. But if you recall, we announced early in November, we announced the results for October, and we had racked up views of just short of 178,000 views, and followers of about 13,500 followers, and that was a record for us. We were ecstatic over that, and if you remember, Ken, right? We were
watching those numbers go up those last couple of months, and
yeah.
According to previous months, we were very happy with those numbers.
I know we were. I can remember us talking about that right exactly the way we are talking about it right now. I can remember us talking about that early in November. We were so proud of that, folks. You got to understand. I mean, we've been at this for going on 5 years now, and I can recall, Ken. I can recall. Some years ago, we had something like 400 views, and that was a record, and that that held as a record for a long time, Well, we kind of changed our format, or changed our approach on how we're putting our live stream out there. And I am just pleased to report, and I hope I hope. What was that? Did you do that?
I haven't done anything.
I hope we do this many more months ahead. But, ladies and gentlemen, in the month of November, we accounted for views of 502,105 views. Folks, that's a half a million. That's a half a million views. Obviously a new record. Obviously a new record. Going from 178,000 up to half a million views.
I had no fireworks ready for you either.
What?
I said I had no fireworks or any type of
Nothing. No.
no specials that I had prepared for that because
Well,
it's fairly new to me. So
I heard a swish in the background there, and I don't know if that was me or what. But a half a million views, 502,000 views, and followers bumped up to 13,564. Nope, that's what it was. No, I got the wrong number there. That number, I'm sorry, folks, that number should be 16,923. I'm gonna correct that slide. I'll correct my notes here right now as we're speaking. Yes, the follower number is 16,923. So
and it's nice to have that type of followers coming along because I think it represents pretty much a feeling that a lot of the country is feeling right now, and that is a different. I don't know. I'm gonna be at a loss for words, Dale. It's a euphorium, I think that is kind of sweeping in across the country right now. Just a different feeling, I think, and I think I'm hoping that those followers get that flavor from what we're putting out here on COS today.
Well, if you listen to the post-election analysis, it's being said frequently that these live streaming programs like ours and podcasting has really taken a hold as a source for news, and really breaking into the corporate media, the traditional media delivery of news. Now, folks, even a half a million views, we are very small in the scope of the whole thing. But we're part of that. We are part of that. This is a live stream, and we're part of this movement. So
I think that the two, Dale. It's I think for years now, many people have seen mainstream media for what it is. Driven by so many other factors that really have not been producing good news. Let's put it that way. And so I think it's nice to be, I think, a part of something as small as it is. It's nice to be a part of something that I think people are coming around to and finding ways to communicate truths to people.
Yes, I think you're right. All right. Well, let's move on. And last word on our announcement as far as views and followers. Thank you, folks, for I see Richard Loken has tuned in and said congratulations. But thank you, folks, for your support and viewing us. So thank you very much. Ken, tell us about that QR code here very quickly, and we'll get moving on here.
I will. I'll keep this very short. It's basically a QR code that'll give you an opportunity to put in your name and email address to become a subscriber. And by becoming a subscriber, you will be open to a platform whereby you can get additional replays of different programs that we've done, and certainly some of our contributor type videos and educational programs. and we have some changes for that coming up for the new year as well. So we'll keep you abreast of that. But yeah, jump on there, become a subscriber, and you'll be informed as far as what's going on behind the scenes here at COS Today.
There you go. Got to kind of catch yourself to make sure you say that right, don't you?
Just trying to rehearse there.
All right. First thing we have for you tonight, a dynamite interview, and it's just part one. And I won't talk about it very much here to introduce it, other than to just briefly introduce it to you. It's another of our Pillars of Freedom segment from Wendy Olson. And this is about a group called the January 6th Pardon Project. Aha. J6 Pardon Project. How appropriate, huh?
That's an interesting word today.
So let me bring it on here, and you'll hear me introduce this to you, so I won't say it again here. So let me bring it on here, and we'll be right back to you as soon as we're finished. Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish, COS Indiana Live host. We have a very special guest for you this evening, and I've been excited about this interview, especially given the results of the election and the work that we have done to date on the January 6th people that were involved in that. As you know, we've interviewed a couple prisoners and some other people that have been part of the support network. And the guest that I'm going to bring to you tonight heads up a group called the J6 Pardon Project. And this is, especially given the results of the election, this is a group that I think is, the time is right for them. The time is right, and they're going to be doing I think, a valuable service. So I want to bring on the young lady that heads this project up. Her name is Suzanne Monk. So let's bring her on right now. Hello, Suzanne.
Hello, Dale. How are you? And thanks for having me. And thanks for considering me a young lady. I'm very middle-aged, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I appreciate it.
We're all young. We're all
young. And frankly, I think I got a little bit younger the night of November 5th when they called it for my president. I think that put 10 years back on my life. So
I think it did that to a lot of us.
Yeah.
But I totally understand what you're saying. So Suzanne, before we're going to jump into your website and jump into the project itself, give us a little background on yourself. I know you've been an activist for some time. So a little background on yourself, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, actually, Dale, I started way back in the early 2010s or whatever. I was a stand-up comedian for about 15 years, but my husband and I lived in Chicago. I performed there. We ran a small music store. We got canceled back in 2017, 2016 because of our support for President Trump. And we decided to move here to the Washington, D.C. area and make sure that we could fight the good fight for the principles that we've all actually seen unfold and be fighting for. All of us have been fighting for the last 8 years, and now we're going to get another 4 years to really continue that fight and put, some real repairs to this country. This country's been in a lot of problems. So we came out here to DC. I started my activism work, started a little PAC at the time. It's called Stand with POTUS PAC because we were certainly standing with President Trump. We've since become Patriot Action PAC, and what we do is basically engage in political action, getting people involved, making those phone calls, making those emails, engaging that citizen engagement as far as politics are concerned. And we launched specific projects. We've been working specifically with the J6ers about J6 since 2021 when we started the launched the activism push to get 4 members of Congress to go to the DC detention center, the DC gulag as they call it. We were successful in making that happen. And some changes have occurred since then, and that certainly started this ongoing relationship with Congress members and with the January 6th community, where the truth has really started to become revealed. In 2023, we dropped off copies of, I think I have a copy here to show you. We delivered copies of the American Gulag Chronicles, letters from prison, real January 6 letters created by Tim Rivers, Marie. Others did a beautiful job, and on this book, you can actually go order that at American Gulag
Yes,
Chronicles if you'd like to. We delivered a copy to every single member of Congress, all 535 of them.
really,
So
wow.
that was an effort we put in to make sure that they had the information, that they had access to information about the plight of these January 6 defendants who were being held pre-trial, who were being held in solitary confinement, who were being denied medical care, denied access to their attorneys, denied due process in court. And so we made sure that Congress had no excuse. That's what we did in 2023 with Operation Yellow Ribbon. And then this past year, we started the J6 Pardon Project in January to work towards what we believed, and we had faith God would provide the president. And what we then wanted to make sure is that he had all of the tools necessary to make sure that that pardoning process went smoothly, quickly, and that strategically. So the DOJ has already put in place. We've seen the lawfare, we've seen the corruption, and we actually, in researching it came to be aware to me. I came to know that they have pitfalls put in place to undermine the pardoning process as well. So we've tried to strategize around those landmines, if you will, and we certainly have created the strategy guide for that purpose. But we've also created the J6 Defendants Database, which is going to be a very useful tool to sort through those cases, be able to review them as categories very quickly, and be able to focus on the cases that are going to require any time or attention. The president's going to be able to get his team to do that very quickly with those tools. So we're excited to get those in his hands, and we've been pushing all year for the public support.
It's going to be difficult for me to control her. She just goes on and on and on. So
I do. That's what we've been working on, Dale. We've been working on it very hard.
I know she's been very excited about this. But Suzanne, tell me, where were you on January 6th? You were there, weren't you?
Well, I live in DC, so I was definitely in town, and my husband and I went and parked in the locked off zone, the little marked off zone that Muriel Bowser, my mayor, Muriel Bowser of DC, blocked everyone off from going in and out of. No traffic in and out. The residents were very frustrated. I don't blame them. She certainly made it harder on them. But we went down and we stayed in front of Trump hotel right there throughout the day. We got a chance to see all of those crowds walking from the Ellipse and Trump's big speech, walking towards the Capitol. And we got to hear reports as people were coming back from the Capitol of what was going on, and of the police brutality and the suspiciousness. In fact, I remember standing there that day, and a friend of mine came and said they broke the doors open. They unlocked the doors. And I said, no, they didn't. They opened those from the inside. And they said, why do you say that? I'm like, well, because I know the building. I know the Capitol building. Those are magnetic locks, electrically locked. And in order to open those doors in any way, you have to unlock those locks. You have from the inside with the magnetic locks. So I knew that's about the building, having been familiar. So even from day one, I always say I was a J6 truther on J6. I was already trying to tell the truth about J6 as it was happening, Dale. And that's where I was at. And we stayed there the entire day until after curfew. We did get a chance to go to see what was going on at the Capitol during the evening. And we spent some time there while they were preparing to do that historic and utterly unconstitutional vote, where they voted to not allow the challenges to the certification. And Congress actually that day broke the Constitution by selecting the electors for the states. There's one specific thing that the Constitution says with regards to the electors, and that is that the states select them. The states choose their electors. And what happened that day was that Congress voted to strip the states of that authority and that power unconstitutionally. And I've been saying that for 4 years as well. And that's what we got a chance to sit and watch happen outside the Capitol building with the news media and the rows and rows of officers for the posing for the cameras, really because they weren't doing anything else at the time. So
well,
that's where I was on January 6th.
All right. Well, as you know, we've talked to some people that were actually there on January 6th. I mean, actually involved in what happened there. So
Sure.
I just wanted to want everyone to know just where you were at that time.
Right.
But so about a year or so ago, then you started the J6 Pardon Project. And I want to give everybody, we're going to go to their website and talk about some different areas of their web. It's a very good website. It's jam-packed full of information. But this is the address of the website, j6pardonproject.com. So you definitely want to check this out because, like I said, it's a very, very nice website. So Suzanne, let me bring that up, and we'll start going through this in some detail here. We don't have time to go through it in extreme detail, right. But I want you to comment on a few things here as we go along here. Okay. I think if I recall right, the first thing you said you felt like you needed to do when you created the website was create this strategy guide. Am I right?
Well, yeah, and that's because I launched this project. Really, the research part started back in November of 2023 when I was talking on Core Links on the prison communication app with my friend Zachary Rio, one of the 5 Proud Boys, and he was talking about the prospect of Trump getting elected and those pardons, and had a lot of ideas about how that would work, and it made me start to want to research and learn if he was correct, and if my gut felt a little nervous. And what I found in those months of research was that there are a lot of concerns and issues with regards to the pardoning process, and that there are specific strategies the president can take excuse me, that would circumvent these problems. Number one is replacing the current U.S. pardon attorney. The U.S. pardon attorney oversees the U.S. pardon attorney's office, and that is the office that basically operates as the pardon secretary for the president. It facilitates all of the pardons that the president issues. They print out the text, they send it to the person, they engage in the communication. That's their job as the U.S. pardon attorney. They also take requests. They take individuals who are seeking a pardon, and they have about a 14,000 case backlog right now. That's not a very good way to get a pardon, but that is their main 2 functions, and who oversees them is the U.S. pardon attorney. And for many years, and under President Trump, and of course President Obama before, there was an acting U.S. pardon attorney who served very well, who did her job perfectly, who was able to issue pardons from people on both sides of the aisle. And this is the kind of thing you expect from someone in that position, a nonpartisan functioning of her job. In 2022, that person was replaced. Rather than elevating her to official U.S. pardon attorney, she was replaced with Elizabeth Oyer, who is a Georgetown and Harvard graduate, somebody who is very left-leaning politics connected, and has certainly worked to make the U.S. pardon attorney's office more woke, as we call it. So
yeah, we're gonna get into
that. That's step one, Dale, is to replace her. That's the kind of pitfalls we see, and we wanted to create a strategy to help the president know them and circumvent them.
Okay, so this strategy, folks, this is if I remember right, this is about a 65-page long document that you created here. And obviously, we're not going to have time to go through this or take the time to do this. But this is basically lays out what needs to be done on this. And this is available on the website.
Yes.
So everyone can go
Yeah,
through
and you
this.
can download a copy for free. We've made that publicly available. We really just want the information to be something that gets out there and is shared. And in fact, we've made it available to purchase on Amazon so that you can send it into your January Sixers that are currently incarcerated. And we've sent in, I think we've got over 75 copies into inmates so far. I'm really excited
Really?
that folks are getting a chance to read it there inside the folks that it is most relevant to.
Okay, Suzanne, we're running out of time here. I want to jump over here to the defendants list real quick,
Yes.
and we kind of skipped over this, but there it comes. You've got the names on here of all the people that have been arrested or served time or now serving time or have but this is a database that you've built, right? And that you're
Yes, this
building.
is the list of names with the intent. The full database has your name, your case number, your list of charges, your list of convictions, your sentence, your incarceration information, all of that information, so that can readily be used to gather the information necessary to provide that pardon. I put out the list of names so that people can check, make sure their name is spelled correctly, make sure that their J6er is here on the list, and this has been a very
How many names are on this list?
1,565 is the current list total.
So this alone is going to save the pardon team a lot of time.
Well, merely just gathering all the names, yes, because it certainly was required cross-referencing a great deal of lists and doing a lot of research. The DOJ does not have all the arrestees listed on their database that they have publicly available, so it took some digging. So even just getting the names, but we have all of their information that is going to be necessary to sort them out. Everybody who's pre-trial, for example, Dale, they don't need a pardon. They need their charges dropped, the record cleared, and they need to go home. And that's something Trump can do with an executive order. So,
okay,
being able to sort those groups out very quickly, that's something the database is going to make very easy. Also, sorting everybody out with only those 4 misdemeanors, that's going to be really easy. Making these large batch reviews quickly possible, and certainly can take weeks and weeks of time off the process. We're really excited to get into the hands of the team, and then we're looking forward to, I believe, Pam Bondi now putting together the task force that will be ready to do that.
Okay, Suzanne, I got it. The clock is telling me I got to wind up here. Will you come back and let's start again on your website with the 6 steps to justice? Okay.
Yeah, let's do
Can
that.
you do that for us?
Certainly, that'll be
okay.
good.
Hold on. We'll be back to you. Boy, she's something else, isn't she?
Yeah. That's a firecracker. She's a firecracker.
No kidding. I had no idea she was a comedian originally, a stand-up comedian. But I could see where she would be.
And I'm sure she took care of any heckler in the group.
I think so. But quite a dynamic lady, and believe me, this project that they're involved in, I think is going to save the pardon team, whoever when that's created, it's going to save them a lot of time, and which is good. Get right to what needs to be done.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I hope you all enjoyed that. I'll be mentioning a little bit later on our next COS today on 12/9. I'll have part 2 of that interview. So we weren't finished with Suzanne. So we'll be talking to her some more, quite a bit more. All right. Well, the next thing that we have for you this evening is I caught up with Larry Hudson again, and we're still talking about George Washington and Meet the Founders. And I think we're getting into the French and Indian War, or we're about to wrap it up here. And so, like I said, I got with Larry, and we've done another segment here. We're still not finished. We still won't be finished with George Washington when this is over, but this is another interesting segment on George Washington, and I always learn a lot from Larry. I tell you, he's really done a fantastic job.
He does a deep dive, that's for sure.
He develops notes and everything. Makes my part very, very easy, quite honestly. So let me bring this on. Meet the Founders with Larry Hudson, another segment to the George Washington Founder Series. So here we go. Greetings, everyone. Dale Parrish again, COS Indiana Live, here with another episode of our Meet the Founders series with Larry Hudson. And now, I don't know if you're keeping track of this or not, but we're still on George Washington. This is episode number 3, part 2. And today we're going to be doing segment 3. So don't worry about keeping track of this, okay? Just know that we're still on George Washington, and matter of fact, we kind of joke around with these numbers of what episode it is, or what segment, so forth and so on. So anyway, don't worry about keeping track. Let me bring on Larry, and let's get started here. Hello, Larry.
Hi there, Dale. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm lost. I don't know what episode we're on either. You just keep marking them off.
Larry just says, "Okay, let's ready to do the next one. You figure out what number it is. Just let me know when."
you keep track of the numbers. I'll just do what I can.
Okay. All right. Well, Larry, here we go again. Okay, this time we're going to be picking up where we left in segment 2, episode 3, part 2, segment 2 of the life and times of George Washington, and we were talking about his role as a soldier, fighting for the crown, and the onset of the French and Indian War. Now, as I remember it, you said that some historians change Washington's military actions in the Ohio Valley with the opening salvos of the French and Indian War here in America. So take it from there, Larry. Where we're going now?
Okay, you're correct. And to recap, I guess, Washington's first military mission, remember, resulted in the death of a French diplomat. Name was Jumonville. And he claimed that the French were killed fighting soldiers, but the French, when they heard about it, insisted that it was a diplomatic party, not a military detachment, and that it was, in fact, a massacre. And there was another story that arose from this incident. I didn't go into it last time because Washington always denied it. But perhaps I should have, as I've read about it yet in another book, and it bolsters the French claim that not only was it their diplomat and that he was assassinated, but that it was also a wanton massacre. And you remember he was labeled a war criminal when this occurred. And so after the French surrendered, the story goes, Washington's, of course, he had Indians working for him at that time. They set about killing some of the unarmed Frenchmen who were now in captivity with their tomahawks, war clubs, as they were called. And they finished their savagery by scalping them. And this apparently included Jumonville himself, the officer in charge. And to top it off, you remember the Indians were under the command of a Indian chief named Half King. And he reportedly scooped out Jumonville's still warm brain and squeezed it in his hands, all while Washington stood by and was either unable or, as the French maintained, unwilling, if you will, to stop the carnage. So you can see perhaps why the French were, so incensed over this encounter. And of course, this was followed up, shortly by Washington surrendering at Fort Necessity and the opening salvos of the French and Indian War. So that kind of, yeah.
Wow, my goodness. Well, I can see why the French would be outraged and charge him with war crimes. But to me, Washington really hasn't accomplished much of anything militarily. Yet he continues to be at the center of conflicts. He seems to find a way to be at the center of things, doesn't he? And
He does.
And conflicts that led to the French and Indian War, even the Braddock campaign that you mentioned, that you covered in the last segment, was a disaster, and yet Washington comes out the hero of the battle, right?
Yeah. He's labeled the hero of the Monongahela, one of the rivers there in Pittsburgh. But you're correct. Their objective was always Fort Duquesne, modern day Pittsburgh, and Washington. He went on to join Braddock's ill-fated campaign to take the fort. Remember, Braddock is killed in that battle. Washington saves the remainder of his forces by leading basically an orderly and successful retreat, and he saved some lives, certainly in the process. The losses really were stunning. The British lost a little over 1,000 out of 1,500 that they had committed that were either dead or wounded.
Wow.
And the French numbers were minuscule by comparison. I think they lost 50 out of about 900 total combatants. And Washington, if you remember, is the only surviving officer out of the total of 60 that were involved on both sides. And so he is labeled as we said, the hero of the Monongahela for these actions.
Yeah. Well, I remember you mentioning Braddock and Forbes, two British generals that Washington served with, and saying that one battle will be disastrous, the other one disappointing. So Braddock and the Battle of the Monongahela, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Monongahela.
Monongahela.
Right.
Was obviously disastrous. So I'm assuming that we're headed for the Forbes battle, and it will be what you call disappointing, right?
Yeah, it's going to be very disappointing. The key to the French and Indian War, as far as the British were concerned, was Fort Duquesne. It was a key piece of property that they wanted to take back from the French. It was strategically located there in the Ohio Valley. And Forbes, he was picked to lead what turned out to be the final expedition to capture this fort. And he had just over 6,000 men under his command. He had some British regulars. I think he had 1,000 Scotsmen fighting in his force. And get this, he had 5,000 militia Americans, if you will, in two regiments from Virginia and Pennsylvania, and they were both under Washington's command. And instead of marching to Fort Duquesne using Braddock's route, remember when Braddock marched against Fort Duquesne, he built a road. He felled trees, they laid them on the ground, stripped them of their branches and limbs, and used them as a road to take their supplies on in wagons. Right. And Forbes decided, no, I'm going to advance directly west, I think it was, toward the fort and build a new road. It shortened the distance by some miles, but it took time to create this, an entirely new road. And Washington, he didn't go along with this at all. And unfortunately, he chose to put his displeasure, I guess you could say, in writing in a letter to, I think it was Forbes' chief of staff, that building this road was really unwise militarily, and he even went on to say that if you persist, the battle will be lost. And unfortunately, as you might guess, the letter makes its way to Forbes himself, and he reads it. And so Washington is relegated to, and much of his forces, remember there are 5,000 of them, they're put to work constructing the new road. And so he's relegated to not a combat mission, if you will, initially. Forbes, they make steady advance, and they finally get close to the fort, but ultimately the French actually strike first, I don't know, 40, 50 miles short of the fort with a sizable force. And I don't know, the battle, it's a skirmish late in the day, and they withdraw back to the fort at nightfall. They did kill a couple of officers, and they captured, I don't know, 50 or 60 British soldiers, but they drew the first blood. And then 2 days later, I think it was, the main British force come upon the scene, and the order of battle is drawn up by Washington. He's back with his 5,000 troops, or whatever is left of them. But the order of battle is his own, of his own design. And the last major action of what they call the Forbes expedition took place at night, with Forbes sending out a detachment, really of the Virginia regiment that Washington was in charge of, to investigate a raiding party that the French were making against them. And when gunfire reached Forbes, he sent out a second detachment. I've not been able to determine, and sources are really pretty unclear on which detachment Washington was actually in charge of. But apparently, in the dimming light of the evening, the dusk was on them, and there was a lot of musket smoke and so forth to cloud things. The two detachments mistook each other for the enemy, and they started firing at one another. And this friendly fire incident resulted in 40 or 50 casualties of them killing one another or wounding one another. And Washington is claimed to have ridden down the line with his sword, knocking up the rifles that his men are aiming at the other force, trying to save lives, because he knew he can see what's going on now, I guess. But a young captain on the other side, I didn't get his name, but he's the only officer evidently to leave a written account of this particular incident. And he held Washington responsible for the incident. And he noted that his opinion was shared by several other of the officers who were in the fracas as well. And as I told you at the beginning of this, before we started, Washington always denied this, and it left an emotional scar on him, and he refused to speak or write about it for many years. In fact, I've not been able to find any written accounts from Washington on really what happened. But there was a friendly fire incident that included his forces killing one another. And Forbes soon learned, unfortunately, that there was only a small force of French regulars inside the fort, and they were suffering from low morale and limited food, I guess. And so he decided to attack then right away, to advance on the fort, because he thought he had the upper hand. And he put Washington in charge of one of the brigades that was to make the attack. But the French found out about their movements, and the commander of the fort was not going to give the British any satisfaction of taking the fort, even though he knew he would be overcome. So instead, he blew up the powder magazines, and he ordered the fort burned to the ground, and basically skipped out with roughly 500 men, I think they said he had. And so Washington and the other regiments discover the ruins, smoldering ruins, if you will, the following day. Forbes, of course, is furious at hearing the news, and his only consolation is that he he can claim the property, but he can't claim victory in a battle.
Yeah.
So the forks are now back in British hands, and the French presence in the Ohio River Valley, which is where they are, suffered a blow that they couldn't recover from. So the French presence was severely diminished.
Mm.
The war is about to become a non-entity. It's about to end, at least in America.
So then this is the final battle in the French and Indian War, you'd say? And if so, then now what happens to Washington? Is this the end of his military service until the start of the Revolutionary War? We got about 3 minutes here, Larry.
Okay, yeah, you're right, Dale, on both counts, really. His expedition, that was Washington's last or final campaign, serving, with the British Army before he retires. He resigns his command of the Virginia Regiment shortly thereafter, as I recall. He, of course, sorely disappointed that he never received, the Royal Commission in the British Army. And I think it was shortly after his retirement, he was able to resign with an honorary rank of brigadier general, but it was in the colonial militia rank, and it wasn't a British rank. So he's forced to quit the service, really with a sense of disappointment and real frustration. The legislature, in his words, had been niggardly in voting money to supply us troops. The recruits were of poor quality. In fact, Washington, as the commander of that militia, had hanged some deserters. These would be his fellow Americans. He'd hanged them and flogged others once they were caught in dereliction of duty. And Virginia also didn't pay him as much as some of the other colonies were paying their troop leaders. So Washington, from a personal standpoint, was disappointed, to put it mildly, that he came out of the French and Indian War without having fulfilled his greatest ambition, a royal commission.
Right.
And, so he was very, very, very unhappy. The truth is, he was ambitious for both rank and honor, and it eluded him. And so, thinking that his military career is over, he turned back to his beloved Mount Vernon and started thinking about managing that large estate. The next year, he marries, Martha Dandridge Custis. He stands for election to the House of Burgesses. He's content to leave his military life behind him. Britain would ultimately win that war.
Mm-hmm.
In America, the French and Indian portion of the war, the 7 Years' War in Europe, continues for a bit. But it's pretty much over for Washington. Now, Britain goes on to prohibit the colonists. This is an important part, and then I'll wind this up. They go on to prohibit the colonists from settling in the newly acquired Ohio territory that Washington and a lot of the militia have been fighting for. They issued what was called a proclamation of 1763, and this proclamation denied them the ability to colonize out there. And so they were outraged. And Washington also was outraged that he had fought and bled for that territory. So this is one of the first grievances that sets Washington on a path to picking up his sword again in the Revolutionary War. And that's going to happen, 13 years later or thereabouts. And so with this, we do come to the close of this chapter of Washington's life.
Well, we know there's much more to come with General Washington. So thank you very much, Larry. This has been really great, and looking forward to the next segment.
Me too.
So we'll
pick it up. We'll pick it up in the Revolutionary War. He's back with the sword, and he's in command.
All righty. All right, Larry. Thank you very much.
You bet. Take care, Darryl.
Thank you. I'll tell you, I'm always amazed at Larry's ability to research this stuff and put this all together.
He's a historian for sure.
That's for sure. That's for sure. He's
Yep.
really doing an outstanding job. And this is all. Of course, this is George Washington, but this is only episode number 3. We got many, many, many more to go. Although he tells me, that on some of the founders, there's very little written about them. Of course, George Washington, there's volumes written about him. So, yeah, Larry's just doing a great job for us. Great job. So, well, Ken, let's talk about what's coming up here, and we'll wrap this up here very soon. I mentioned this a little earlier, but on our next broadcast on December 9th, we will have part 2 of our J6 Pardon project with Suzanne Monk. So that'll be part 2, and really some very interesting things from that website. And we get into the types of pardons. There's different types of pardons. Of course, we saw one type that was issued today by our current president. But there are different types of pardons. So very interesting. I hope everyone will enjoy part 2. We'll have our state director, Dale Tipton, on to give us an update on the state for the month of November, and give us some current information about how the state fared for the month of November. And of course, we'll have another episode of COS Basics.
Sounds good.
So, and we'll be closing out this evening with another episode of COS Basics as well. Okay, so that's coming up next week. Now, we also have a roundtable coming up on December 23rd. And it's going to be the same topic that we've been dealing with, the Bill of Rights, Don't You Dare. In other words, things that are forbidden. And this will be part 3. So this will be the third and final part of this topic. And just to let everyone know, this will be a pre-recorded program on the next roundtable on December 23rd, due to that being the week of Christmas. So we're going to record this between now and then, and we'll be presenting this as a recording on December 23rd. And Ken, we got to also think about what we're going to provide everyone for December 30th. I didn't include that here, but that typically will be either a best of or maybe we'll put something else together. I don't know quite now, but we got to put our heads.
Do that out. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to put our heads together on that, but we got plenty of time to pull that together. So, Ken, any comments or questions from viewers tonight or anything?
Nothing of direct correspondence. Just a few congratulatory notes, but I'm sure people were just intrigued with Suzanne and certainly
really
Larry's thing. Yeah, I think there was a lot of information there. People I think we'll see. I think people will certainly want to see part 2 of that, and the rest of that J6 Pardon project. But no comments that we need to address tonight. So maybe you put up that email address. People have the comments or questions. We'll get them answered. But
yeah, I forgot. I better put that up. If you have any comments or questions after our broadcast this evening, drop us an email, raiseyourvoice@gmail.com. raiseyourvoice@gmail.com. Back on this pardon project that we're presenting to you. You know, this is the J6 prisoners. That's a day one. That's a day one promise that Trump had made, that he would address the J6 prisoners on day one. So I'm really we're trying to put together some information, some interviews, and so forth, focusing on day one promises, and there are, as a matter of fact, there's I don't know, 5, 6, 7, something like that, day one promises, and so
yeah, you think about it. I know we've talked about it many times. To have these people that have been, some of them still sitting in jail, others that have still on house arrest or whatever. But this has gone on and on, and it's sad that our justice system has put these people through something that most Americans couldn't dream of going through. In this country, you wouldn't think it would possibly happen. So I think we've talked about this before, Dale. I mean, those that actually committed a crime or did something that was against the law, certainly they should receive their penalty. But majority of these people, as we've witnessed through some of the testimonies we've had, some of these people were just there for their right to protest and bring their grievances to be known, and have been incarcerated for it. It's just
yes,
it's been sad to watch that. So I know that they're all certainly looking forward to January 20th, and maybe we'll start to hear more about January 20 than we'll ever hear about January 6th in the past.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Well, Ken, let's wrap up this evening with another episode of COS Basics by John Ackerman. This is episode number 25, Article 5 being a tool for the states to use. So we'll go ahead and play that video of COS Basics, and that will be it for us this evening. And we'll sign off right after this video plays. So, Ken, have a good evening.
All right. You too.
And to everyone who's been watching this evening, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll be back with you again next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So, everyone, have a good evening.
Take care, Dale.
John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana. In this episode of COS Basics, I'm going to talk about a point made by attorney Rita M. Peters, and that is that an Article 5 convention is the tool given to the states to check federal power. Okay? This is the tool that belongs to the states to check federal power. Article 5 naysayers claim that we should fear a convention of states because they believe that Congress, which is only given the duty to call the convention upon the application of 34 states, then proceeds to dictate the operations of the convention, determine the scope of the proposals, and even select the delegates to attend the convention. This claim is bogus, it's almost humorous, and it's easily laid to rest using a combination of history, logic, and precedents. Number 1, history. A look at James Madison's notes of the convention for September 15th, 1787, reveals that an earlier version of Article 5 gave Congress the sole power to propose amendments. Colonel George Mason objected. He said that, quote, no amendments of the proper kind would ever be obtained by the people if the government should become oppressive. And so we got the current version of Article 5. unanimously adopted by the Constitution's drafters, requiring Congress to call a convention of states for proposing amendments upon the application of 2/3 of the states. That was number one, history. Now we look at number two, logic. In the light of the stated purpose of our founding fathers in adding the convention to Article 5, the Convention of States, to provide the states a way to bypass Congress, it would have been completely illogical for them to choose as their safety net a process that gave Congress control over what proposals could be considered, the identity of delegates to consider them, and the rules that would govern the convention. Our founding fathers were far too wise and experienced to have made such an obvious blunder. That was number two, logic. Now, number three, precedent. The body that calls an interstate convention does not, by virtue of issuing the call, exercise any power to choose or commission delegates who will represent other bodies at the convention. This is a matter of logic, but also a matter of precedent. Remember that Virginia called the Philadelphia Convention of 1787. Did it get to choose the delegates for Pennsylvania or Massachusetts or New York or any of the other states? Of course not. Each state chose its own delegates. And that pertains regardless of what body calls the convention. And so her conclusion is that the states control the Article 5 convention process from beginning to end. Congress's role is limited to issuing the call once it receives 34 applications for a convention on the same topic. The call simply sets the date, time, and location of the meeting. The state legislatures control the selection and commissioning of their convention delegates. And so I close the same way I opened, by stating Attorney Rita M. Peterson's point. An Article 5 convention is the tool given to the states to check federal power.